I've been thinking a lot about anger, and part of why I'm thinking a lot about anger is I'm a manifesting generator. And you might not know this about me. Some of you maybe do. I have kind of a short fuse, at least in my personal life. I have a habit of being really deeply grounded, very, very spiritual, and very, high from my meditation in the morning and going upstairs and fixing breakfast for my daughter and getting my husband help, being with my husband and being present. And I will lose my temper like that. And part of why I lose my temper, I have decided, and this is going to sound really basic, but roll with me. Part of why I lose my temper is because our kitchen is not designed well for a manifesting generator. And so it has all these little weird aisles that bump out, and the passageways are very narrow. And I move really fast in the kitchen, and I'm in the span of 20 minutes preparing. I have the 50-27, so cooking is my language of love, right? So I'm cooking a really good, healthy breakfast for my daughter. I'm packing a really good homemade lunch for my daughter. I'm, talking to my husband and getting his espresso for him. I know this, I'm taking care of all of this. And in the meantime, my family and the dogs and the cats are all in the little narrow walkways in the kitchen. And so I get really frustrated and I snap. Now, part of why I snap is that if you are a manifester or a manifesting generator, that anger response isn't really anger. It's perceived and felt by others as anger. But really what it is, it's that internal nonverbal creative flow. When it gets disrupted, it explodes, because that creative energy, that's your innate connection to life rolling through you, and that creative process that is so beautifully unique to the manifestor and the manifesting generator. When that process gets interrupted, that creative force has to go somewhere. And so oftentimes it explodes. Now, I have learned over time how to soften that response, how to not snap, how to not throw things. And sometimes literally I have to go out of the room and just slow myself down. Probably it would help if I didn't have 2 big cups of really heavy French roast coffee before I went to fix breakfast for everybody. I'd probably feel a lot nicer. But I know myself well enough to know that this is my soft spot and I need to be mindful. And frankly, my family knows me well enough to know now that they stay out of the little narrow walkways. But anger is a theme that shows up in relationships, even when we're not manifestors or manifesting generators. We can be angry in relationships. And honestly, anger is a really challenging energy in relationships. It is a sort of special kind of hell. It's like we feel hell. We feel like we're in hell and we blow up. And then we feel like we're in hell afterwards because we feel guilty or we have regret. And oftentimes we've said or done things that we don't want to say to people who we really love. Part of what happens when we experience anger in our relationships is that we've let things fester for too long. Sometimes we've let things fester too long because we really don't know how to communicate correctly by type. If you are a generator, projector, or reflector, you have what's called a non-motorized throat center. So what that means that for you, if you have a non-motorized throat, there's really 2 distinctly different kinds of conversation that you have. The first kind of conversation is talking, and that kind of talking is talking that has the function of energy release. When you get into the energy field of somebody who helps you bring energy up to your throat, what happens a lot of times is because when you have a non-motorized throat, that energy builds up and it doesn't get released, then you're sitting on all this stuff, and all of a sudden you're with somebody who hooks up your throat. Now it's like, blah, 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 and you do all this talking because that's how you move energy. And when I pick up my projector daughter from school, in the afternoons, and she slides into the back seat, she talks all the way home. And sometimes it's really meaningful conversation. A lot of times it's just talking, because I know that she's got all this energy that she's picked up all day long in her open sacral, and she has a non-motorized throat, and she has to move that energy. So there's the kind of communication that's talking, that's just moving energy. And then there's the second kind of communication that's actually communicating, not talking, but actually communicating how you feel, what you want, what you need to do to make a plan. And that kind of conversation needs to be approached correctly by type. Meaning, if you are with somebody who has a definition of some sort that needs recognition and attention, and that's definitely going to be generator, projector, reflector. You have to know how to access information correctly from that person so that they can feel the relief of being heard and being adequately activated in the dialogue. So part of what happens sometimes is we feel anger in our relationships when our partners don't know how to correctly activate our communication energy. If, my first husband was a projector, and one of the things that would happen a lot for us is he would come into the kitchen and he'd ask me 5 questions in a row. Do you want to have, bread for breakfast? Do you want to have oranges? Should I go to the grocery store? Do you think we need to get some more water? It was like he would rapid fire these questions at me, and as a sacral being, I couldn't even answer them fast enough. And a lot of times they weren't sacral questions. So I'd just be like, I couldn't respond to that. So, knowing how to access questions and communication, how to ask questions and communicate correctly by type is essential, because not only does it allow your partner to adequately communicate, it actually also creates this huge relief, because when you have a partner that knows how to communicate with you and you know how to communicate with them, not just the talking part, but the actual communication piece, it allows you to actually co-create and collaborate together in a healthy way. And it allows you both to feel seen and heard and loved and valued and cherished.